Today on Studio One, there are major technology upgrades in the future for some emergency services. Also, we'll tell you what a team does to prepare for the playoffs, physically and mentally. And we'll meet a man who is happy to be singing the blues.
From the University of North Dakota in Grand Forks, this is Studio One.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Studio One. I'm Monty Cashel.
And I'm Katie Fletcher. You know, around this time of the year, people are just really anticipating those spring and summer months.
I know. Every time the temperatures just edge up a little bit more, it's like, when are we going to see the grass? You know?
Right, exactly. The grass growing, the flowers blooming, and the sun shining.
Yeah.
But actually later, we'll get to meet a woman that finds a way to bring those summer, the springtime feeling inside.
That's right, and we get to get our hands dirty today.
Yep, right in the soil. We get to dig around a little bit.
And what's she making again?
She's creating miniature gardens.
All right, should be interesting. Also on the show, 45 years ago, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the ban on interracial marriage. Find out how young Americans are changing the look of the American family.
Sometimes kids suffer from depression. We'll look at the unique struggles military kids go through that most children don't.
But first, here's today's news with Stephanie Shire.
Thanks, Monty and Katie. The San Diego-based charity Invisible Children is in the spotlight for producing a video that has gone viral. The documentary is aimed at stopping Joseph Kony in Uganda. Kony is the leader of the Lord's Resistance Army, a group engaged in a violent campaign to overthrow the Ugandan government. The group is notorious for recruiting child soldiers. The half-hour documentary about the Ugandan warlord has over 30 million hits. It's been reposted several million times on various social networking sites. An Invisible Children spokeswoman says the group plans to use any money raised from the video to build schools in Uganda and to broadcast anti-Lord's Resistance Army messages that urge fighters to stop. March 11th marks the one-year anniversary of Japan's deadly earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear meltdown. These disasters killed over 15,000 people last year and left several injured. Now Japan's economy and stock market are slowly rebuilding, and they have plenty of job opportunities. There are still many places in Japan that are undergoing construction and several others that have not been attended to. Many cities try to eliminate all distractions for drivers. Now human billboards are getting the red light. San Marcos, California is the latest city to ban sign spinners. Officials say the sign holders take the focus away from the roads and divert drivers' attention. They are strategically positioned on busy intersections, but some say they can cause accidents.
That we clearly know that that's a safety concern, again, for the motorist and the individual. And it was just causing not only too many safety concerns, but just general distractions of the motorists.
Opponents of the law say the ban on sign twirlers conflict with the right of free speech. Some businesses still send workers out to wave people in, just without signs. It's happened to everyone. You sit down on an airplane and the stranger next to you strikes up an unappealing conversation. Now one airline is offering a method to avoid these situations. Dutch airline KLM has created Meet and Seat, a new program where travelers are able to pick the person they sit next to before the flight. Passengers use Facebook and LinkedIn to find other flyers with similar interests or conversation preference. Users cannot reject someone who chooses to sit next to them, but they can select another seat. In 2010, 15% of new marriages were interracial. This is the highest percentage in history. This number continues to grow for couples whose love is more than skin deep.
Tyler and Becky Anderson have a one-of-a-kind love. With any relationship, the Andersons have much in common, from lifestyle views to life's simple pleasures.
Becky's family loves Mountain Dew. They love Mountain Dew more than any other family I've ever ran into. They love Mountain Dew, and I really drink Mountain Dew, and it's really funny.
Tyler and Becky's marriage is unique for other reasons as well. They are one out of the 4.8 million couples in the U.S. who married outside of their race.
No, no, it wasn't. He was Tyler, and it wasn't an issue at all. It wasn't something I thought about.
A Pew Research study found that 1 in 12 U.S. marriages are interracial. Marrying someone from another race has evolved over the years.
There was changes in Hollywood, media, We saw the characters in Hollywood become more sympathetic towards racial minorities, which would change attitudes to be more sympathetic in interracial relationships and marriage.
In 1980, just 3% of marriages were interracial. In some states, it was even illegal 50 years ago. But as time goes on, it becomes more accepted.
Parents come from a different generation who saw race differently.
As social progression evolves, there will always be those who still do not share the same views.
You are going to find people that are racist in every culture that want you to stay inside the race, and you're going to find people that are okay with that.
For Tyler and Becky, embracing their racial and ethnic diversity has brought them together. With photographer Devin Krinke, I'm Allie Strand reporting for Studio One.
Due to the increasing number of interracial marriages, the Census Bureau estimates that multiracial Americans will represent a majority of the population by 2050. And that's the news for now. Monty and Katie.
Thanks, Stephanie. Well, it's that time of the year where you can't really tell if it's winter or spring. It gets cool and then it's really warm.
Temperatures are so random.
Yeah.
It's like, what season are we in? Well, let's go to Kellen Peters now with the weather news. He's going to talk about these above average temperatures that people have been experiencing across the nation.
Thank you, Monty and Katie. You know, I really think those those above average temperatures are here to stay. As I think we're safe to say that winter is gone now. Let's take a look at our weather outlook. This is the next 3 months moving on into the spring, and you can see all this orange area right across most of the United States. They're going to experience above average temperatures, which was not expected at all for this time of the year. Now, last year we faced a La Nina effect, and basically that had a lot cooler temperatures, especially moving on into springtime, and a lot of snowfall. However, this year, the temperatures-wise, it hasn't quite been the case. However, we are expected to see a lot of moisture and rain throughout the next 2 weeks. Now, specifically Minnesota, this has actually been their 10th straight month that has been warmer than average, and other states across the area and out east have been setting records of themselves too. And actually, models have been cranking out that over the next 2 weeks, temperatures could be up to 15 degrees above average than we would expect for the month of March. And actually, over the next 2 weeks, there's actually large amounts of rainfall that are expected to sweep through the central part of the United States. Now, early in March in the Midwest, Minnesota, North Dakota, and up in Canada have been around 2 to 3 inches of snow depth. And actually, in just Minnesota itself, they have lost over 2 inches in just a day due to temperatures. Now, since we didn't have a real cold winter, we didn't get a solid frozen surface at all. And when we're seeing radiation, that's going to start melting the snow. And when there's no more snow, that radiation starts actually warming the ground and the air. And when we start getting that effect, that's when we start getting that warm air coming up from the south. So that's where we actually have the potential to see 50 to 60 degree weather coming up a little bit later on into into March. Now, for a typical jet stream in February and March, it's going to be dipping down into the United States, and that's where North Dakota the Midwest starts seeing a lot of their winter weather. However, this quite hasn't been the case, as it's really been sitting around the U.S.-Canadian border, and with that, we're seeing a lot of warm air compared to the cold air that is needed to function those winter weather low pressure systems. So instead, we're seeing those thunderstorms that have been sweeping through the central part of the United States. Now, as for our outlook, it's very warm right now throughout most of the United States. And this is where I was talking about the 50 and 60 degree weather. Other than the west of the Rocky Mountains, it's going to be above average temperatures. Seeing any rain in the area, it's really all the way from Minnesota down to Texas, over into the Pacific Northwest. However, it is going to be dry out in the eastern part of the United States. Now, as for our weather question of the week, is which city holds the highest temperature ever recorded in the United States? Is it Death Valley, California, Yuma, Arizona, Roswell, New Mexico, or El Paso, Texas? You know, if you do know the record, I don't think, Monty and Katie, we are going to be breaking it in the month of March, but a lot of interesting weather has been happening recently.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Kellen.
Thank you.
Well, we had some pretty hot places there on that list.
Oh,
I'm not sure exactly which it'll be.
Maybe well over 100.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Temperature.
Okay. Well, it's time now to turn to sports. We get to watch some highlights, and John Schaefer will lead us through them.
Thanks, Monty and Katie. Youth knee injuries are on the rise. A new study by researchers at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia found 400% increase over the last 10 years. An estimated 90,000 high school and college athletes a year suffer an injury to the ACL. This ligament connects the thigh bone to the shin bone. Basketball and soccer are the most common sports to see these injuries because of the sudden stops and changes of direction. Studies show that girls are 8 times more likely than boys to tear their ACL.
It's how their muscles work together in what they do, because they've seen girls land typically a little differently than the boys do.
Experts also attribute the rise in injuries to the increase in the number of girls playing sports. Doctors still haven't found the best way to prevent these injuries. It's now time for the Studio One Sports Trivia question. How many World Series wins do the New York Yankees have? Well, I can tell you it's quite a few, and we'll get to that answer later in the show, and that's the sports. Monty and Katie.
Thanks, John. A Civil War vet is transported to Mars. This is the premise of the classic tale of John Carter. We'll preview the movie that tries to capture the century-old story on film.
Also, many kids have to deal with their parents going on the odd business trip. Military kids have to worry about their parents going to war. We'll look at how this act of patriotism from a parent can negatively affect their children.
The University of North Dakota School of Medicine and Health Sciences is meeting the challenge of future healthcare workforce shortages. The state's only medical school produces the highest percentage of graduates nationwide who choose family medicine. Advanced degrees are also offered in basic medical sciences like anatomy and health professions like physical therapy. Students learn and train throughout the state.
In that way, we really are North Dakota.
Make your choice the UND School of Medicine and Health Sciences.
At the University of North Dakota School of Engineering and Mines, improving the world is our project.
This could be your next road.
Our research helps heat your home without hurting the environment.
You drink clean water because of my work.
We push technology to improve quality of life.
This field could fuel your car.
Petroleum production can be more efficient.
One day, my ideas will impact you.
I am
an engineer.
Accounting at the University of North Dakota is more than just numbers. It's about maintaining a history of high-quality education and developing leaders in the accounting profession. While numbers stay the same, the UND accounting program continues to evolve. UND hosts one of the country's best accounting programs and now offers a master's degree in accountancy. Accounting at the University of North Dakota. Numbers accelerated.
Studio One is a television show produced by students at the University of North Dakota.
You can be a part of the graphics team, the marketing team, news team, programming team, production team.
Training never ends. You get to produce guests, you get to do the reporting side of it.
It's really worth the experience. You will not regret it.
Help others live to their full potential. Improve clients' mental and physical well-being. Excel in one of the top healthcare careers of the future. Occupational therapy students at the University of North Dakota experience high-quality education in small classes.
You have to come to 45 degrees, even in a normal motion pattern.
Your healthcare career begins at the University of North Dakota.
You're watching Studio One, news, weather, sports, and entertainment.
Kids have to deal with school, peer pressure, and relationships. Military kids deal with the extra pressure that their parents might deploy. And in the fact that they often relocate, this can have negative effects on child behavior. Joanne Birch works on a military base and helps kids cope with these pressures. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Welcome.
Well, tell us a little bit about what your role actually is on the Air Force Base.
Well, I've been working for the Air Force for nearly a year now, but I've been a military wife for over 20 years and been on many, many bases. My role actually is the training curriculum specialist. I train the staff on how to work with children from 0 to 18 years.
Okay, and you said you've lived on many bases,
We have.
married to somebody in the military.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, what exactly is deployment?
A deployment is where your spouse has to leave the family, whether it's just on travel for a business trip or whether he's deployed to the war zone.
Okay. And how does deployment affect the family unit?
It can affect people in many, many ways, depending on the age of the children. When they're very, very young, the kids don't usually notice that a parent has actually left. But as they get older, it can affect them academically, it can affect them emotionally. Each child is different, each family is different on how they handle the deployments and being away from each other.
Sure. And, often one parent goes away and the other stays, but what about the times when both parents are active military? How does that work?
That makes things a lot more difficult. When a military member signs on, he has to have a power of attorney. So basically when both military members do deploy, then usually the children go to a grandparent, and if there is no grandparents, then it's the next person that is assigned, that the parents have assigned for them to go to, probably a best friend, godparent.
Certainly a lot of changes in a child's life, depending on, like you said, the age. It can be very different. What about you as a mother who's gone through this firsthand? I mean, how has this affected your kids when moving or deploying?
My children actually are very well-rounded. We've lived overseas for 14 and a half years, between Iceland, Guam, and Europe for 7 years. They have handled it very well. I mean, I'm not saying they haven't missed the father when he has deployed, which while in Guam he was gone for months and months on end. But we made it fun and made it an adventure. There was always something to do on the base. There is many, many resources out there. So, and the community is very involved as well.
Okay, and you talked about your own experience with your children. You said earlier that it depends on the family unit and the situation. What is the typical kind of reaction that kids have when their parent is deployed?
Sadness. Definitely sadness for those who can understand the meaning of deployment. For children whose parents are full-time military, they're kind of used to seeing mummy or daddy going out in a uniform every single day. For children who are with like the National Guard or reservists, I think that's a lot harder because they are known as weekend warriors. The children don't normally see the parents in uniform, only possibly on a weekend, and even then they may not even notice. So when it does come to these parents being deployed, it's very difficult on those children, a lot more so on the full-time military kids.
And how bad can this get for kids?
Depression can set in. Academically, it can be very difficult. Luckily, there is a program called Tutor.com, which is a free service for military, active duty military, National Guard reservists, and even DOD, which is Department of Defense employees, people who are away. And Tutor.com is a free service. It's all background checked teachers, professors, and it's 24/7, so anybody around the world can access it, and it's there to help the children and homework, especially for the ones left behind who, like myself, couldn't do math very well. It's a wonderful thing.
Sure, and deployment is one thing, but then also transferring to a different base is another. Is it similar or different?
It can be very exciting. I think the education is phenomenal for any child to see a different culture, a different country, food, language. The children are all, excuse the pun, in the same boat. Because most of them will go to a DOD school on the base, and they've come from all over the place, from all countries, from the states, from different states.
What is a DOD school?
Department of Defense
okay.
school.
So it's right on base?
Most of them are on base, and all the children, they always have something to share, and it's an adventure.
So you're going toward the positive then with the transfers, that most kids handle that well? Then
Absolutely. I think we've transferred between 7 and 9 times with PCS, which means going from one base to another. And as long as you make the experience positive, there's lots of ways you can do that for the children, and you involve them and you keep them involved with every step of the way.
Sure. Okay, last question for you. What about after they reach 18, maybe ready to move out of the home. All of this, how do they adapt to military, or not to military, but civilian life after that? Is it a good transition?
Some have a difficult time because they've spent so many years overseas, and a lot do find their way back overseas, where a few, maybe more than a few, do actually make roots within the States,
Sure.
and are fine.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Very
It's
welcome.
great
Thank you
talking
for having
with you
me.
today. Well, coming up, most athletes prepare the whole year and even their whole career for this, the playoffs. Find out what hockey coaches and players do differently in the postseason. Also, the Blues are known for spiritual and soulful melodies. We'll meet a man who travels around sharing his love for this type of music.
Studio One closed captioning is underwritten in part by Options, your disability information source.
What does cancer look like? What about diabetes, heart disease? Medical laboratory professionals are a vital link in the treatment of disease and maintenance of health. They investigate clues found in the body that will direct patient care. The University of North Dakota's laboratory science programs are some of the most innovative, far-reaching, fully accredited programs in the nation. The UND School of Medicine and Health Sciences can help you become one of the few who see beneath the surface.
It's not the size of the woman in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the woman.
This is a place where innovation abounds, a place where dreams come true, a place where creativity is a way of life, a place that fires our soul. Join us for the North Dakota Spirit Campaign. Together, we will shape the future of UND and North Dakota.
Disney's new film, John Carter, is a new addition to the line of fantasy films. It is based on a novel collection published a century ago. The story starts when Civil War veteran John Carter unexpectedly gets transported to a beautiful but troubled planet. He now possesses superhero-like powers due to the differences in gravity from Earth. He tries desperately to find his way back home. Carter gets tangled into an ancient war. Filmmakers tried to bring out the same feeling as reading the books.
Have you made the audience or the filmgoer feel like what it felt for the reader to read the book? And to me, that's the sign of a good adaptation.
The story is written by Edgar Rice Burroughs, famous for his creation of Tarzan. The story travels from Arizona to planet Mars. John Carter is played by Taylor Kitsch, known for the American football series Friday Night Lights. John Carter opens in theaters March 9th with a PG-13 rating. Now it's time to look at the events happening in your area. Blues music generally tells the tale of sorrow and heartbreak, but for one man, playing the blues has been a story with a different ending.
Sammy Moore, better known as Ironing Board Sam, says everyone experiences the blues.
The
If you get ready to start the car in the morning and it don't start, and you have to be to work on time, you really got the blues. So everybody has the blues sometimes. The baby can't get his bottle when he wants, he got the blues too.
Sam's career has taken him many places and in front of countless audiences. There is a blue note to this musician's tale.
Every 10, 20 to 40 years, music changed, the whole style changed, you know, to something, you know. So as the music changed, it leaves out some musicians have to stop making a living that way.
Sam was one of those musicians. He was forced into early retirement due to the lack of work. Fortunately for Sam, not everyone gave up on the blues. The Music Maker Relief Foundation works to help original blues musicians who have trouble finding work.
He's reaching back, getting these musicians who are got lost with the change of music, and he's recording them, giving them a second chance.
The organization helps musicians with recording contracts, tour bookings, and even with bills and other living expenses.
I got quite a few engagements booked up on me now, and so I feel like somebody again.
Sam might sing audiences the blues, but at the end of the day, his story is one of hope, not sorrow. With photographer Matt Petroviak, this is Katie Mullally reporting for Studio One.
Sam got the nickname Ironing Board Sam because of the instrument he used in his early career. He says he created the first portable keyboard by mounting it on an old ironing board. Coming up, spring-like temperatures have helped people get a head start on spring projects. Find out how this winter helped sales at home improvement stores. That story plus news, sports, and weather in the next half hour of Studio One.
Closed captioning for Studio One is underwritten in part by NDAD, helping others to help themselves.
If this tennis ball represents today's environmental challenges and these puppies are the EERC, then tackling those challenges is just another workday. At the EERC, we're improving air, water, and soil quality, developing renewable fuels, cleaner power plants, and discovering new ways to use our natural resources. And just like those puppies, we'll never tire of the pursuit. EERC, putting research into practice.
Help others live to their full potential. Improve clients' mental and physical well-being. Excel in one of the top healthcare careers of the future. Occupational therapy students at the University of North Dakota experience high-quality education in small classes.
It has to come to 45 degrees, even in a normal motion pattern.
Your healthcare career begins at the University of North Dakota.
This is a place where innovation abounds, a place where dreams come true, a place where creativity is a way of life, a place that fires our soul. Join us for the North Dakota Spirit Campaign. Together, we will shape the future of UND and North Dakota.
Your future depends on this moment. Take the path that leads to your future.
From the University of North Dakota in Grand Forks, this is Studio One.
Welcome back to Studio One.
Thanks a lot for joining us. Well, one of the topics that we're going to be exploring is actually dealing with relationships and how to find that perfect mate. There was a CNN study a survey actually, they went out and asked people, would you rather date someone who owned a house or rented?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, and overwhelmingly, it led toward someone who owns a house.
Right, I guess if you own a house, that means you can probably buy some other things.
Maybe. Well, we thought it was an interesting question, so we asked people that on the street as well. Their answers are coming up. Also, in the next 30 minutes on Studio One, you know that small number by heart, and it's seeing some big upgrades. We'll tell you what's down the road for 911.
And martial arts are a large part of Chinese culture. We'll meet a group that performs this art by combining acrobatics with traditional animal costumes.
Also, gardens and green plants are usually something enjoyed in the spring and summer months. Later we will meet a woman who has figured out how to bring the outside in. But first, here's today's news with Stephanie Shire.
Thanks, Monty and Katie. 3 people were injured Wednesday, March 7th, when a shooter opened fire in Tulsa, Oklahoma courthouse. Police say a white male entered the courtyard and began firing. When deputies approached the gunman, he opened fire again, injuring an officer. Police were able to take down the shooter and arrested him. Another individual was hit by a stray bullet. The suspect, deputy, and bystander were rushed to the hospital. All 3 are in stable condition. Police are now trying to determine what prompted the shooting. 2 young children were found living in an abandoned school bus on Wednesday, March 7th. Police say the children, ages 5 and 7, have been living in the bus since 2009. They moved shortly following their parents' arrest and placement in a federal prison. The kids told police they live with their great aunt, but due to her long work days, they were often left to fend for themselves. Though living conditions for the children were quite poor, police say there doesn't seem to be any sign of physical abuse. The children are now in foster care, and authorities are investigating to see if any charges should be filed. Johns Hopkins University is looking to put an end to the lecture bowl. The faculty of the university has dedicated the 2012 academic year to finding alternatives to the typical lecture style of teaching. 1/3 of students who enter college choose fields in math, science, or technology. Of those students, only half will earn a degree in that field. Those educated on the subject say that because of its size, the lecture is a turnoff to students. They say it creates a passive learning environment.
The most important thing in education is for students to be engaged in it, for them to have a part in what it is that they're learning. And it's certainly easier to do that if you have a small class and all the students are participating and engaging in discussion.
One goal of the movement is to break up these large classrooms into smaller ones, creating a more intimate experience for the student. While charging your cell phone, you may no longer need a cord or an outlet. Researchers at Wake Forest University have developed a new method of charging your phone that only requires body heat. Power Felt is a piece of fabric that uses thermoelectric technology to charge electronic devices. Currently, the material is only able to produce 140 nanowatts of power, which isn't yet adequate for cell phones. Scientists are hoping to improve it in the near future. When it's fully operational, they plan to market the fabric for only $1. The 911 emergency response system is getting a technology makeover. They hope the changes will allow for a faster response time at your fingertips.
This 911 is the response people get when they call 911. It may be the call that saves their life. And soon, a simple text message may do the same.
The types of calls that we're receiving are more from cell phones. We began to think that there might be people that are trying to text as well. Right now, texting 911 does not work. It's completely different technology.
A bill that recently passed is giving $115 million to the next generation 911. The upgrade will incorporate text messages. Currently, Black Hawk, Iowa, and North Carolina are the only centers that are testing for 911 text messaging. Other call centers are watching from across the nation to see how it works.
And I was just at a conference, and they felt that it's probably going to be close to a decade before we have all of the technology in place to process those calls.
With landline calls, dispatch is able to know the person's name, number, and address. With cell phone calls, dispatch is able to trace the person's exact coordinates of where they are located.
Disadvantage would be locating where they're actually at. If you just get a simple message, people don't always know where they're at, or if a call, we can at least triangulate it and get a location on them.
Some people say it would be a better idea to have an alarm button on their cell phone sending a signal to 911 dispatch when they need help. However, this technology is still years away. Until then, remember to make an old-fashioned call in case of an emergency. With photographer Corey Robertson, I'm Brittany Konop reporting for Studio One.
ALT says the system upgrades will also allow people to send 911 videos and photos. And that's the news for now. Monty and Katie?
Thanks a lot, Stephanie. Well, I could see how sending pictures and video would be a a good thing to do.
Right, it's kind of the new technology that's coming
everybody's
about.
sharing that stuff. So.
Not a lot of people make those phone calls anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go now to Kellen Peters with the weather news. He's going to talk about how one state got hit with lots of rain that caused some problems.
Thank you, Monty and Katie. You know, the central part of the United States have been getting a lot of attention right now, but Hawaii actually got recently bombarded with large amounts of rainfall. And actually, they've had a lot of flooding occurring, and actually rock slides occurring also. And the National Weather Service has had to put out several warnings for flash flood warnings and other rock slide going on. As for the governor of Hawaii, he actually had to declare a state of emergency for 2 islands for the state of Hawaii. Now, it's interesting taking a look exactly what happened in this area. And for the state of Hawaii, Honolulu, Hawaii, actually got up to 36 inches of rain, so 3 feet of rain. Mount Wahale rain gauge actually recorded 28 inches, and Kapai, Hawaii actually recorded 22 inches of rain. Now for the state of Hawaii, the average rainfall for this month is around 25 inches, so they shattered that in just one storm. So it's interesting to see what they're actually battling on right now. Now when it comes to flooding in general, it's important to not take a risk if you're in a vehicle or about, it's important to seek safe areas. And actually, it only takes 18 inches of water to actually move a vehicle. And when there's water on the ground, you never are too sure of how deep it is. So that's the reason why if you ever see moving water, it's just safe to turn around. Now, while we have been experiencing a lot of warm weather, and it's been triggering a lot of actually severe activity, it can trigger trigger home improvement as well.
The warm weather across the United States this winter is spurring up people's productivity.
I think people are just out and about more when it's nice.
At Menards Hardware Store in Grand Forks, North Dakota, they have seen an increase in home improvement projects over the past months, projects people normally save for spring.
But with this winter being so nice, I've seen things going on like putting new siding on your home and shingles and stuff like that you would never normally think about in the wintertime, but it's been going on all winter.
Bigger companies like Home Depot and Lowe's have seen on average a 20% increase in fourth quarter income. They attribute the increase in sales to the weather. But with the mild temperatures comes a price.
I've got a lot of snow blowers left and heaters and kind of more of that winter stuff that hasn't went as well because it's been so nice.
Even so, the nice weather motivates people to tackle projects small and large.
We are redoing a house that hasn't really been much done in about 50, 60 years. We're redoing a 1910 house.
This year's mild winter helped people skip their hibernation and spring into productivity. With photographer Matt Petrowiak, I'm Brianna Kump reporting for Studio One Weather.
Now, even the general manager of Menards said himself that he's actually taking up a project of redoing his garage. Now, with warm weather, that brings us back to our weather question of the week, and is which city holds the highest temperature ever recorded in the United States? Is it Death Valley, California, Yuma, Arizona, Roswell, New Mexico, or El Paso, Texas? With the answer at Death Valley at a comfortable 134 degrees. So I don't know about you, Monty and Katie, but if that's temperatures outside, I probably wouldn't be doing too much housework.
Definitely would not.
No.
I wouldn't call that comfortable either. Thanks, Kellen.
Thank you.
Not outside housework anyway. Maybe inside if you got the air conditioning on.
I guess.
And if it can keep up with those temps. All right, let's turn to sports one last time and John Schaefer.
Thanks, Monty and Katie. The goal of any team is hoisting a trophy in front of their fans at the end of the championship game. However, putting your team in the position to obtain that goal is where it gets difficult. Starting from day one, teams practice for up to 192 hours a season for the chance to play in a championship game. Coaches have a set plan to ensure that their team is prepared accordingly as the season goes on.
It's a season-long project, and we've still got a long ways to go in terms of where we would like to get to. Most importantly, short-term, we have to get through a best 2 out of 3 series this weekend, or our season does not continue.
Everyone's pretty excited to, we're finally in playoffs and finally get to, this is where the hard work gets won.
For some of these collegiate athletes, they have spent 4 years preparing themselves for their final postseason. With a win-or-go-home mentality, there is no room for error come game time.
There's a lot of guys in our locker room that do that. They just show up every single game and compete, and they care about each other, and I think everyone genuinely cares about being part of a winning solution.
The team will have to buy into the formula for what it takes to win. And for this coach, it comes down to
all the little things. We have to do all the little things very well.
As the final minutes up to game time tick down, the nerves and adrenaline must be pushed aside in order to focus.
The most important thing for our hockey team is to make sure that we're, feeling good, feeling rested physically, and feeling like we're mentally prepared.
When the season comes to a close, the players will skate off the ice knowing the preparation and hard work was not for nothing.
Since becoming the bench boss at UND in 2004, Coach Haxall has won 3 WCHA tournament titles. He has also taken his team to the Frozen Four 5 times. Now the answer to this week's Studio One Sports Trivia question: how many World Series wins do the New York Yankees have? The answer is C, 27. It's the most in Major League Baseball, and their last one was in 2009. That's the Sports, Monty and Katie.
Thanks, John. Many people find buying a home to be scary. However, surveys say when choosing mates, people look for someone who owns property. We wanted your thoughts on if you'd rather date a homeowner or an apartment renter. And your answers are still to come.
Also, Wushu is the national sport of China. We'll meet a group that has perfected this sport through years of competitive experience.
If this tennis ball represents today's environmental challenges and these puppies are the EERC, then tackling those challenges is just another workday. At the EERC, we're improving air, water, and soil quality, developing renewable fuels, cleaner power plants, and discovering new ways to use our natural resources. And just like those puppies, we'll never tire of the pursuit. EERC, putting research into practice.
Your future depends on this moment. Take the path that leads to your future.
Studio One is a television show produced by students at the University of North Dakota.
You can be a part of the graphics team, the marketing team, news team, programming team, production team.
Training never ends.
You get to produce guests, you get to do the reporting side of it.
It's really worth the experience. You will not regret it.
At the University of North Dakota School of Engineering and Mines, improving the world is our project.
This could be your next road.
Our research helps heat your home without hurting the environment.
You drink clean water because of my work.
We push technology to improve quality of life.
This field could fuel your car.
Petroleum production can be more efficient.
One day, my ideas will impact you.
I am
an engineer.
You're watching Studio One from the University of North Dakota in Grand Forks.
When it comes to Kung Fu, many may think of punching and kicking. One group uses martial arts for a much deeper purpose.
Drum beats, chanting, it's almost hypnotizing. At one time, this performance was exclusively for royalty.
The lion dance is performed to scare evil spirits and to also bring good luck. The loud music is also played to also scare the evil spirits and also to bring good luck and prosperity.
The dancing is meant to display a performer's martial arts skills, and the dragon moves effortlessly across the stage. But it's not as easy as it looks.
Very hot and a little heavy and stuff.
To scare away evil spirits is hard work.
It's a great way to improve your flexibility, speed, and power. You learn how to fight, defend yourself, and you also learn a lot of cool acrobatic moves.
I think this Chinese wushu performance was very powerful.
The artists get different reactions from the audience.
Well, some people say that I'm cute.
Despite the cuteness, no evil spirits will come to this stage anytime soon. With photographer Doug Andam, this is Henrik Torget reporting for Studio One.
The Wushu Manitoba Training Center is the premier Wushu Dragon and Lion team in Manitoba. They perform across the nation. If you're single and looking, a recent study suggests you might want to buy a home. The CNN survey determines that only 2% of women and 3% of men would prefer to date a renter. The rest would want a relationship with someone who owns their home. We wanted your thoughts on whether you would prefer a homeowner or a renter as a love interest.
I'd probably rather date someone who owns their home because it means they're more financially stable.
I don't think it necessarily matters that much, but I'd probably prefer a home just because it's kind of their own space where they can do what they need to do.
It wouldn't matter. I guess it depends on the person.
Renting is a waste of money, and owning your own house shows that you're looking out for the future.
I want to own a house myself, so somebody who's already got that's kind of cool.
It really wouldn't matter one way or the other because typically I still think I'm probably old-fashioned thinking that the man is still the breadwinner of the family.
I would rather date someone that owns their own home. It's a little more sign of stability, I think.
I would rather date somebody that has a residence, a home, versus an apartment because it shows more stability.
Sounds like it's all about the stability. A comment from our Facebook page from Fargo. Nick says, it depends on the situation, but I'd say own a home because there's more security and typically more stability. Also, we had another from Kelly in St. Paul. I would prefer a man who rents at this point. We could buy a house together down the road. Plus, I love to move around, and having the option to terminate a lease after a year or so would be nice. It takes an imagination to create art. Next, we will see how one woman takes elements from nature and adds a twist to create a year-round garden.
Closed captioning for Studio One is underwritten in part by the Listen Center, where meeting friends at Listen is a groovy thing to do and has been since the days of Woodstock.
What does cancer look like? What about diabetes, heart disease? Medical laboratory professionals are a vital link in the treatment of disease and maintenance of health. They investigate clues found in the body that will direct patient care. The University of North Dakota's laboratory science programs are some of the most innovative, far-reaching, fully accredited programs in the nation. The UND School of Medicine and Health Sciences can help you become one of the few who see beneath the surface.
It's not the size of the woman in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the woman.
This is a place where innovation abounds, a place where dreams come true, a place where creativity is a way of life, a place that fires our soul. Join us for the North Dakota Spirit Campaign. Together, we will shape the future of UND and North Dakota.
Spring is a time for sunshine, growth, and renewal. Miniature gardens let people enjoy that spring feeling by incorporating nature with a touch of creativity. Deborah Hopkins is here to show us how to create a miniature garden to enjoy all year round. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thanks for bringing the spring hat.
You got it.
Oh, definitely.
Great.
You're dressed for the part.
You bet.
And so you have this hobby, and it's kind of created, a side business for you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can. I can. My name is Deborah Kay, and I have a business called My Creative Heart.
And I named it that because there's so many things that I enjoy doing, everything from growing my own food to cooking that food to creating the gardens. And when the fall comes, I start feeling kind of sad, so I start scrambling to get as many things as I can inside so I can create miniature gardens all winter long.
Okay, and that's what we're doing today, is creating a miniature garden.
Yes.
And we have a couple of finished ones here. Can you walk us through what you would do? We're doing one a little bit different from this one. This is kind of an open-faced one.
Great. One of the most important parts of the miniature garden is to have good drainage. And I like to use the small stones because that ensures that if there's water pooling in the bottom of here, it's going to be down in the stones and it's not creating a situation where my plants are drowning. People kill more plants by overwatering them than for any other reason.
Sure.
So it's a good idea to always make sure you've got that good drainage. And especially in this container because it doesn't have a drainage hole in it.
And that was only about an inch or so of rocks on the bottom?
About that much in there.
Okay, inch and a half.
Right. So how do you come up with the ideas of what you put into a miniature garden?
I scout around and I look for things, anything from in the woods to at the thrift stores to any of the places. And I love whimsical themes. I like fairies, and for my grandsons I like to make dinosaur type scenes. So I'll use big rocks and plastic dinosaurs. And here's a little house that I found at a thrift store and I thought it looked kind of cool.
Okay, so you don't have to break the bank finding things to put in these
that's what's
gardens.
really fun. And you know, these miniature gardens have gotten really, really popular. You can actually go to a greenhouse and you can spend as much as $250 making one of these.
Sure.
And the one that I'm making for you right now is probably going to cost about $2.50.
Wow, that sounds a lot better than $250.
I think so too.
So you just threw a little bit of moss in there now, right?
Right,
And
because
then
I
the
want
house.
it to look real earthy and you know, kind of like it's a very natural look. And then I want to put a plant in there so that the plant is going to look like the tree on the side of my little house.
And does it matter what kind of plants you put into these miniature gardens?
Typically you want ones that don't grow too fast. So if they grow too fast, you're going to have to do lots and lots of pruning.
Sure.
And so this one is going to be the little tree alongside the little house.
And I suppose you need plants that, you know, can survive in the winter, you know, in
Yes.
an indoor environment.
Yes. And where you end up with a problem here is we don't get a lot of light. So you can kind of make up for that by using fluorescent lights, or I'll set this on a stand where it'll be sitting where there's a lamp where there's light burning all the time.
Okay.
And leave it on like 24/7.
So where do you usually get your materials? You said thrift store, garden centers.
Here we have a lot of craft stores. Michael sells a lot of the things like the stones. I've got some crushed seashells here with the bulbs that I'm forcing in them. All these little rocks like this you can buy at Lowe's, you can buy them at Menards. And then the little figurines, you can just hunt around for those at your grandma's house, or, you know, they always have lots of that kind of fun stuff.
Sure, and then it looks like you have some natural things like driftwood.
I love the natural things. This little one, doesn't this look like a little gnome?
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that adorable? I just fell in love with it. And I actually have that sitting on a coffee table at my house with some rocks. Like this one is nice. This one I found back in the wooded area by our farm. And this is a piece of petrified wood.
Okay.
So I was really excited about the wood grain. And now this one would look cool with dinosaurs.
Okay.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
So you're just kind of always on the lookout, you know, in nature and in random stores.
I am.
So do you get your inspiration for things with themes, or do you find a piece like that and say, well, that's going to be the center of it and build around it? How do you decide that?
Basically, I'll find a piece and I'll look at the color and the shape and the style of it, and that will determine what way I'm going to go. Now, like this one, which has real scroll work, pretty little arbor in there, I decided that that lent itself really well to my little angel that I put in there.
Okay,
And because of the colors on her, then I stuck a little orange butterfly in there with it, and I've got one clipped up here. So just a real calm, serene looking one. I also have some that I do that I put little miniature fountains in.
Okay.
So you can hear the water bubbling, and those are fun.
Do you create these miniature gardens for others? Do people ask about them?
They do. I do teach classes on it through my Creative Heart, and I also have another business called Garden Girls. And when we have Garden Girls classes, a lot of times in the spring, we'll teach container gardening, and we'll create all different kinds of things. And you saw when you came to my studio, the tree burl that is totally planted. And the tree burl was at someone's house. They were selling their house, and it laid alongside the house where the lint from the dryer was all over it. And I asked, I said, are you going to leave that there? And she said, yes, do you want it? I said, yes. What are you going to do with it? Oh, fairy garden. That's a fairy garden. And she was like, fairy garden?
So you not only scrounge out in the woods, but at people's places as well.
Yes, my eye is watching constantly for something. And you know, I'll think all the way back to when I was a little girl. You know when you get the pizza in the pizza box? You know that little white piece in the middle that looks like a little table? Yeah. That was a little table in my dollhouse.
Well, this is great.
So you've had this love for gardening since your childhood.
I have.
Well, thanks so much for coming on today. These are just great examples of being able to take little stuff from here and there and put together a piece of art.
It's really fun.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks for coming on today.
You're very welcome.
You're watching Studio One from the University of North Dakota. We'll be back right after this.
The University of North Dakota School of Medicine and Health Sciences is meeting the challenge of future healthcare workforce shortages. The state's only medical school produces the highest percentage of graduates nationwide who choose family medicine. Advanced degrees are also offered in basic medical sciences like anatomy and health professions like physical therapy. Students learn and train throughout the state.
In that way, we really are North Dakota.
Make your choice the UND School of Medicine and Health Sciences.
If this tennis ball represents today's environmental challenges, and these puppies are the EERC, then tackling those challenges is just another workday. At the EERC, we're improving air, water, and soil quality, developing renewable fuels, cleaner power plants, and discovering new ways to use our natural resources. And just like those puppies, we'll never tire of the pursuit. EERC, putting research into practice.
At the University of North Dakota School of Engineering and Mines, improving the world is our project.
This could be your next road.
Our research helps heat your home without hurting the environment.
You drink clean water because of my work.
We push technology to improve quality of life.
This field could fuel your car.
Petroleum production can be more efficient.
One day, my ideas will impact you.
I am
an
engineer.
What does cancer look like? What about diabetes, heart disease? Medical laboratory professionals are a vital link in the treatment of disease and maintenance of health. They investigate clues found in the body that will direct patient care. The University of North Dakota's laboratory science programs are some of the most innovative, far-reaching, fully accredited programs in the nation. The UND School of Medicine and Health Sciences can help you become one of the few who see beneath the surface.
Tune in next week on Studio One. We'll meet a man who raises every deer hunter's dream. He travels around the country with bucks that he's nurtured from fawn to trophy size. Plus, we'll have other news and entertainment stories for you.
We're going to leave you now with pictures of people taking a chilly plunge to raise money for North Dakota Special Olympics. From all of us here at Studio One, have a great week.